Hi YouTube, welcome back to the channel. It's come towards the end of the riding season now in 2022. What are we? We're now in the first week in November. Still a little bit of sunshine out, but yeah, end of the season. So I thought I'd give you a little catch up on what I'm going to do with the bike and where it is at the minute. A few things that I've done this year or since we last did a video. All in all, you know, another really good solid year. Bike performed excellently, didn't let me down at all, not one single blip. I've now done 55,500 miles. So I think in the last one I said, oh look, you know, it's getting to 50, carry on, see how it goes. So again, you know, it's riding now as well as it ever did. So I'm just about coming up to its third Desmo service. So I was looking back through the service booklet just to see when I did the last lot, and the first one I had was at 19,000 miles in January 2021, and then the second Desmo I had earlier on this year, February 23rd of February 2022, 38,800. So although it says 18,000 mile service intervals for the Desmo, it's not strictly that. I go by the indicator. Obviously it's got lights on there. I've just checked, and like I say, I'm up to 55,000 and it's still got another 1,900 miles, which I will probably do, you know, over the winter months. So I'll probably get this done, I don't know, January, February next year. That would probably be about right. And yeah, so it'll have what, 58,000 miles on there. Again, I've been searching on YouTube and the internet for high mileage owners of 1260Ss. I can't find too many, which is half the reason why I'm doing this series of videos, just to reassure people if you want to use them, then use them, and they're absolutely fine. They may lose a bit of money, but you know, it's the pleasure in riding that we're after. But you know, the bike is as solid as a rock. So I'm still interested in hearing from other people, whether it be, you know, overseas or wherever it might be, people that have done decent mileages on these or the 1200, and just give me a heads up as to, you know, what I might expect. So a couple of things I've got planned up when I do the Desmo, and I strongly believe in doing preventative maintenance as opposed to waiting for things to go wrong, especially as you can probably gather, I do a fair amount of touring, and I've got a couple of overseas tours planned early part of next year, April next year. So I'd rather get something sorted and fixed rather than wait for it to go wrong and then, you know, have to sort it out. So apart from the Desmo service and doing the tyres, chain and sprockets, all the usual bits and pieces, brakes and what have you, it's anything else that people may recommend. Interestingly enough, I was looking through the sort of service booklet of what they should do on Desmo services, and I think every 36,000 miles you're supposed to change the fork oil. I haven't had the fork oil changed at all on my bike. You know, 55,000 miles or so, still feels fine. There's no leaking. The seal's not leaking. I'm minded just to get that done. As a precautionary, and just get it done anyway, and I may see whether the forks need to be serviced in any greater detail than just literally changing the oil. I'm also thinking about the rear shock and whether that needs to be serviced, if you like, in inverted commas, quite what they do, apart from, you know, again, changing some oil and seals maybe. But again, I'd be interested in if anybody has had the rear shock. Again, this is a 1260S with Skyhook. It's not obviously got the O-lins. If you've got a Pikes Peak, obviously it's going to be obviously different. But again, if anybody has done those sorts of things, I'd be really interested. The other thing I'm reaching out for is a friend of mine that's got a 1200S, no quick shifter, so it's a manual. He's done about 40,000 miles, 44,000 miles. He's just had to change the clutch pack, the clutch plates, I should say. So again, Obviously with the quick shifter, you don't use the clutch very much at all, obviously, you know, pulling away and stopping, but apart from that I don't use it very much at all. Maybe changing from fifth to sixth if I'm doing sort of a little bit of motorway work, but I don't use sixth on this bike much at all, if I'm being totally honest. So again, just some interest around that piece. A few things that I've had to do since the last video. I've had to change the front brake discs. I had a warp on one side that was causing a few shakes and rattles and rolls and what have you on the front. So I struggled during the summer to find either Ducati or the Brembo Oreo equivalent brake discs. There seem to be shortages all over the place. And even the same with EBC. I put a sort of notice on the EBC Direct website saying, look, let me know when the front discs arrive. You've got them back in stock, and they notified me first of all. So I put those on with their pads as well. I quite like them now that they're on with a sort of goldy bronzy inset. Just looks good. They perform exactly the same as my experience in the Brembos or the Ducati Brembo. And obviously I did 40-odd thousand miles plus with those discs. So I've run these now, I've probably done 10,000 miles, between 8 and 10,000 miles on those, and I can't notice any difference with the brake pads or disc setup. So maybe a bit of reassurance. One thing to note is the EBCs are probably half the price of the Ducati stroke Brembo options, so well worth considering those if you, as long as you like or don't mind that gold centre. That's always the way, isn't it? Get a slight interruption just as you're halfway through. But where I was getting to is, just had to alter the brakes and put the EBCs on. The other thing that you may remember if you've watched the other videos is that I had an issue with that caramelly gunk build up within the sight glass and within the oil filler cap. So at its interim service, oil change service, I decided to change the oil and do it myself. So when I did it, I didn't use the Shell Advanced oil. I used the Putalin, however you pronounce that equivalent. I used that oil as my top up for no other reason than the Shell Advanced just is a bottle with a cap on the top, no pouring spout. I know it's a small thing, but when you're touring, that's a real pain. So some friends of mine use, again, this Putalin that's got a fantastic retractable pouring spout, and really that's makes the fill up that much easier. So I've been topping up as I go, and obviously these engines use oil throughout. So this time I decided to do the oil change myself. So I dropped the oil filter and got the replacement crush washer and all the other bits and pieces, and I topped it up, or filled it up with Putalin oil, exactly the same spec, so fully synthetic, all the right spec. And since then, and I've done that, so it's coming up to at least 7,000-8,000 miles, I haven't had any gunk at all in the filler cap. And like I say, this wasn't just a build up for the last few months before I did the oil change. This was ages beforehand. Regularly when I topped up the oil, I used to get a little cotton bud and just wipe out all this caramel stuff. So anyway, I'm not saying it's the Shell oil, I'm just saying that from my experience using that Putalin oil has just, suddenly now after using that oil, I'm not experiencing any build up of moisture or that caramel. So that's just one thing to note. You may also remember that on the last video I said I had to have the HT lead changed on the front cylinder because of slight misfire and so on, and the warning lights coming on. So I've had that changed, and it's safe to say that bike's been performing absolutely fine ever since then. I'm minded to ask them to have a look at the state of the HT lead for the top cylinder when it goes in for its Desmo, obviously they'll have to strip it all down, and just see that it's a cheap as chips part, and whilst the engine's all apart, it may be worth, again, preventative maintenance is just replacing that. I think the front one is a damn sight easier to get to than the top one. Just logic says that, not that I'm a trained Ducati mechanic, but logic says it is a lot easier to get to. So I may well get that done. Yeah, one other, or a couple of other parts I'm just waiting for, and it's just a bit of comfort if this does happen to you yourself, because I've had a few, not scrapes and bangs, but a few. I've had to change these hand guards a couple of times. These plastic things here just get knocked, and so on. They're relatively expensive, 30-40 quid, and the top one's a tenner. So you can change those, very easy to change. It's just the indicator bit that's a little bit more expensive. But when I did have a slight little scrape, I scraped the rear panniers. Obviously I've got to take them off the bike at the minute, but I scraped the rear panniers, the black sort of centre piece. And when I first looked at it, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, they're 300 quid a pop, those panniers. But just something to bear in mind, that they do all come in individual parts. So the outer big black cover, if you like, is about 35 quid. It's a bit of a faff to dismantle the pannier and put it on, but it's dead easy to do. So if you've done that, you've got a scratch down the side or whatever it might be, a mark, relatively easy to replace. So the final thing is tyres, yes again. I'm still running Road 5s. These are on their last legs. These Road 6s are about to go on. A few more people are using Road 6s now on these, and again, you know, all I hear is good things, so they'll be going on. And it will be interesting to see how much more mileage I get. I'm still getting between, I don't know, 5,500, 6,000 miles per set. So it'd be interesting to see if the claims are right, that you get a extra 10 or 15% more usage, if you like, out of those tyres. So that's it really. I've got to get this all done, ready for a couple of trips, as I mentioned earlier on, that got planned. Going back to Spain and Portugal in early April, just around Easter actually, with my brother, just taking a sort of 9-day tour around there. I went earlier this year, highly recommend it. Not necessarily the coastal areas, but down from, if you take the ferry across to Santander or Bilbao and sort of heading down north to south, between the Portugal border and Madrid, down through there, down through to Seville, and there's some really nice rides around Malaga and so on, and then I'm coming back up through Portugal again to the Asturias area of northwest Spain, and back again. So again, you know, the fact I'm doing that 2 years running sort of says a lot, I think. Hopefully trying a few more different roads, but it's spectacular stuff, and I highly recommend that. So look, anyway, that's enough of that. Again, you know, give me a like and add a few comments in if you've got any advice or tips that you may want to throw at me, and feel free to ask any questions. Safe to say, I'm running the bike again next year. Some people, I think I've repeated this before, but some people have said these engines are good for 250,000, 250,000 miles, so that will be interesting. But anything else that you may think that I should get sorted just to prolong this bike? Obviously we can't buy these anymore, and they're becoming a bit like hen's teeth, so I absolutely love this bike. The V-twin, L-twin I should say, is just absolutely suited to the way I like riding, so I'm going to preserve this for as long as I can, really. So yeah, any hints and tips to prolong its lifetime would be much appreciated. Take care, enjoy your riding, and I will probably do another one when I come back from Spain next year. Take care.